And welcome everyone to tonight's RMT members pre-strike online briefing taking place now. About over 900 RMT members are currently watching this on live stream, and there are thousands more of you watching on Facebook and via Twitter. I'm Alex Gordon. I'm the RMT National President, and I'm joined here in the boardroom at Unity House by RMT General Secretary Mick Lynch and our two Assistant General Secretaries, Eddie Dempsey and John Leach. Tonight's live stream will be an important opportunity to brief RMT members employed by the various companies with whom our union is currently in dispute. And just to remind everyone, that is all train operating companies under contract let by the Department for Transport, Network Rail, London Underground, and Arriva Rail London, London Overground as it was known. And all RMT members employed by Network Rail and those 14 train operating companies will take strike action on Thursday the 18th, that's tomorrow, and Saturday the 20th of August 2022, and RMT members employed by London Underground and Arriva Rail London will take strike action on Friday, the 19th of August, 2022. Many of you watching this briefing tonight will have joined us back in April for the first of these RMT online rallies during our ballot campaign. And tonight we're live streaming this briefing ourselves for the first time. So the picture might look a little bit different, but we hope that the information is up to date and will assist you tomorrow and over the next 3 days in informing our members about our disputes. This is the fight of our lives, and we aim to do more live stream events such as these in the future, whenever necessary. We're also live streaming this briefing on RMT's YouTube channel, on Facebook and via Twitter. And if any viewer requires subtitles, these can be turned on the YouTube channel and on Facebook. You will also we will also be recording this live stream and we'll make it available for everyone who can't be here tonight by uploading it to RMT's website. We've had several hundreds of members already submit questions in advance of this briefing tonight via email, and I expect that your officers here on this panel will cover most of those questions in their updates. We've also got 6 RMT reps from different sectors of our rail industry, from Network Rail Maintenance and Ops, London Underground, and the Overground and train operating companies, who will be joining us a little bit later to put some key questions to the panel. Because this is a live stream, we can't take more questions tonight, but as always, if you have any other questions about picketing your workplace and the dispute with your employer, please speak to your RMT rep, attend your RMT branch meeting, or you can email info@rmt.org.uk or call the RMT helpline 0800 376 3706. And now I'm going to introduce the RMT General Secretary, Mick Lynch, who will update us on the latest negotiations with the train operating companies, which took place this morning in London. Over to you, Mick.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us tonight. And I hope you get some benefit of the information we're going to give you. And we'll obviously intend to keep these going. So to cut to the chase, I'll summarise where we've got to and where the dispute is with the train operating companies. And of course, it's a joint dispute in parallel with Network Rail, and we've got London Underground as well. So the discussions have been going on at senior level throughout the campaign and throughout the strike action as well. There's never been a period where they've broken down or we've walked away. And so that dialogue continues. But the agenda of demands that the companies are putting forward under the direct instruction of the government is as severe as we had predicted in the run-up to the ballots. And so the summary of that position, or their positions, are that they have not provided a guarantee of no compulsory redundancies. They've not made any new pay offer beyond what all of the public sector were allowed to propose to us way back when at the turn of the year. That was 2% and 1% for all the productivity. So there's no new offer that isn't available to other public sector workers. And they are still pushing for radical changes to working practices, terms and conditions. It is clear now that they wish to shed thousands of jobs, but we have no declared numbers from the companies in any particular grades or any locations. And they will only make a pay offer on the basis of what they are calling modernisation, which you've seen in the media. And we have to accept the implementation of that modernisation in order for them to make a meaningful pay rise. And modernisation for them means, in summary, and includes these items: driver-only or driver-controlled operation of trains, meaning that we will be back to the battles that we've had all over the last 6 years in various companies across the train operating sector for 6 years or more now, and previously to that in other eras of our union, other eras of our industry. They intend, and they've said this to myself and John Leach directly across the table, to close all of the ticket offices in Great Britain that are controlled by these train operating companies. And they want to transition the retail of fares and tickets and railway products to an online basis, or ticket vending machines or other channels such as apps and what have you. And then they intend to deploy all of those staff that are involved in that through different methods. They want to introduce new contracts of employment for everyone without exception. So that's the two big groups: the onboard staff, including catering and guards, conductors, and so on, and all of the station staff. They want to convert the current distinct grading structures that we have across the railway into two multi-skilled grades, generic grades. So there'll be a multi-skilled station grade and a multi-skilled train crew grade, and that will include guards with safety critical duties and catering staff. They want to make Sunday working mandatory for all staff in the train operating company world. And they want to make major amendments to existing terms and conditions and agreements. And this will include everything. But if you take issues such as attendance management, the MFA, rostering, the way that trains are diagrammed, holiday entitlements, sickness entitlements, whatever you want to consider as part of your own package in your own companies, they want to review those, as they call them, and modernise them. And you can work out that they're not going to be improved through these means. They want to attack them and dilute them. That's all in an attempt to drive down costs, while the private sector companies continue to extract profits, and their margins are now guaranteed through the contracts they have with the Department of Transport. On top of all that, there are proposals being formulated right now which will make considerable detrimental changes to the railway pension scheme in terms of the contributions and the benefits in retirement going forward. This is due to the intervention of the pensions regulator, but nevertheless, the changes would be serious and considerable. But I know that members may be really concerned that there is no breakthrough or deal or proposed deal on the table right now. That's because there isn't anything that we can agree on at this stage. But our efforts and our commitment to this campaign have halted their plans in their tracks. We've pushed back their plans to attack us. Both the government and the companies wanted these measures and changes implemented last year, if not earlier, and we have stopped that in its tracks. Nobody has lost their jobs and nobody has had their conditions changed, even though we've not had a pay rise for 2 or 3 years in some cases. We have brought these issues to national public attention, put the companies and the government on the spot, and we have stopped them ramming through these changes without resistance. We continue to hold dialogue with the train operating companies, both over the principal items that I've set out that they want to pursue and the detail of what those proposals would mean on the ground for our members in their working lives. We feel it's important that we fully understand as a union what they actually want to achieve. There is no easy way out of this scenario, and a settlement will certainly not be easy to achieve. But what we do know is that your determination, solidarity and willingness to take the action in support of our campaign has strengthened our hand and our ability to negotiate massively. In order to achieve a square deal for our people, we have to continue to be resolute and we must stick together. If we hadn't taken our stand, we would have suffered a massive defeat before we'd even started to talk. And if we do not maintain our position now, we will be greatly weakened, and they will ram through these changes with little say from this union or indeed from the rank and file members. So in order to push this dispute to a suitable conclusion with a deal for all members in the train operating companies that we can support collectively, we must now stand strong and be resilient, take on the action over this coming weekend, and make sure that we deliver that solidarity for our people so that when we go back to the table in the coming weeks, we still have that strong hand to negotiate. I want to thank you for your support and for your continued commitment and loyalty, and I'll hand back to Alex now and we can hear the other reports. Thanks very much. Thank you very much, Mick.
And just to let everyone know that since we started this live stream, we started with 900 members watching. We've now got almost 2,000 on the live stream watching direct, and there'll be others on different platforms that I mentioned earlier, YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. Now it gives me great pleasure to invite Eddie Dempsey, the RMT Senior Assistant General Secretary, to give us an update from our negotiations with the Network Rail. Eddie.
Thank you, President. And firstly, I just want to congratulate all of our members supported by their branches, their regional councils, representatives and officers for the remarkable show of strength and resilience we've seen over the past period. I've never been prouder to be a member of this trade union because despite the difficulties that we face and the hostility that's been shown, you've stood together in unity, showing courage, and you've been a beacon of hope, I think, for working people across the country. So since our last broadcast, we've received 2 offers on pay. The first one in Network Rail was for 2% plus an additional 1% to accept a whole range of changes, both in operations and maintenance. That was rejected by our National Executive Committee. And in the following period, strike action and the threat of strike action brought an improved offer forward, which was 4% for 2022, 0% for 2021, an additional 2% plus a 2% cash payment, which would be consolidated in 2023. This was also conditional upon accepting a range of changes in operations and in maintenance. There was a no compulsory redundancy offer for the life of the deal with it. In the branch rooms, in the mass meetings and around the country, the message that we got back from you, our members, was a resounding reject. And it was a reject because right now that would represent a real terms pay cut for people in Network Rail. Our inflation benchmark for negotiations for this year was set in November of 2021, which was 7.1%. And of course, there's huge uncertainty about where inflation is going to be going in the next year. So that offer was unacceptable and was duly rejected by our National Executive Committee. The offers that have been made are conditional, as I've said, upon a range of changes, and I'm just going to give you some detail on what is being discussed. So in operations, some of the changes that are sought are based around recruitment and training, reintroduction of a 6-month probationary period for new starters. We're pressing to make sure there's a second opportunity for people to pass rather than just one, and that probation periods are extended to allow for that to happen. We're trying to eliminate the use of fixed-term contracts to cover signalling and supervisory grades. They're proposing revised notice periods. They originally wanted 6 months notice period for signalling grades and ECROs. We're pushing for that to be reduced, and we seem to have agreement at this point that they're going to come back to us with an offer of 4 months, which would in reality mean more like 3. For new hires to be brought into a geographical area without demotion, ability to hire comparable roles without re-advertising, the ability to hire SSMs and MOMs from pools, the reintroduction of the 52-week rule for new entrants, and employees to be released for within 6 months of appointment unless mutually agreed. That's something we're pushing for. They also want to create a new signaller's job description, which is something we're not opposed to, but are working through the detail. And we know that's been a demand from some parts of our membership in the signalling grade. They want the mandated adoption of traffic management but we're seeking to make sure that agreement comes that only a single in person will have the authority to change the path of trains en route. Is going to be a new contract for station grades. That's been worked through and is in the final stages of agreement. They also want to look at a new operating model for stations that will take some significant time to work through. And they want a new agreement based on the people's process for bands 5 to 8. I know that's been something that's been on the books for a significant period of time, and we're working through that. In maintenance, we still have in front of us the modernising maintenance programme, which will remove about 1,900 people from the organisation and about a third of all frontline posts, if you include vacancies, from the frontline maintenance organisation. They are still intending to reduce maintenance schedules tasks by 50%, which is being considered by our safety representatives. There's a lot of work to be done to try and investigate and understand the impact of those changes. We're not convinced that there's a safety rationale for that. They want to introduce individual rostering, increase the number of overlapping skills available, change the team structures drastically, and change the deployment of maintenance teams and how they work. They want to introduce the GTRM Carillion contract for new starters and to make that an option for people to go onto. There's some work around that to be done, but they also want to introduce a justifiable retirement age, which has caused a lot of concern among people because that was originally proposed for just operatives, team leaders and technicians. We're seeking to negotiate and introduce a technology and a core work agreement that protects our people and means that maintenance work is delivered by directly employed Network Rail maintenance staff and is supported by the use of contractors rather than contractors coming in to replace directly employed people. On the 28th of July, Network Rail issued us formal notice of consultation on redundancy, starting a statutory 45-day consultation period based around their modernising maintenance proposals. They withdrew their no compulsory redundancy guarantee, and we are in that consultation as we speak and are focusing right now on the job security aspects of that, trying to get a no compulsory redundancy agreement put back on the table and arrangements to protect people as they progress. So we continue to negotiate with the aim of reaching a negotiated settlement, but the company with the issuing of that notice are clearly preparing to move towards an imposition and a fire and rehire situation. And that is why we've got to stand firm and be resolute over the coming days. Pay talks were held yesterday at our request. The company are saying at this point in time an improved offer on pay will only be made at the point when we reach a final position on modernising maintenance. So we continue in those talks with a view to reaching a negotiated settlement. However, we cannot accept a situation that is detrimental to our people and leads to changes that are going to make our members work harder for less money in ways that are detrimental to their health. So we must keep a united front. We must mount the picket lines and keep the pressure going, because so far our industrial action has moved the company. It's brought forward improved offers and it continues to push them back around the negotiating table. So the strength that you show out on the picket lines is repeated again by strengthening our arm in those discussions. I just want to mention before I close the solidarity shown by our people in operations to our members in maintenance. That has not gone unnoticed and has been remarked upon by maintenance workers across this country. And so I want to congratulate you for that. I also want to congratulate our Scottish Regional Council and our Officer Gordon Martin up there for the excellent demonstrations that have been so impactful down at Network Rail head offices up there. And also want to congratulate our Liverpool 5 branch for the rally, strike rally and march they've organised in Liverpool for the coming day of strike action this Saturday. I'll see you up there. So with each day of action in Network Rail, it's been clear that our pickets have grown. The support for our action is growing and the pressure that it's bringing to bear on the company is increased. So mount the picket lines as you've done over the next few days. Any final offer that we achieve through negotiation will, of course, be put to you in a referendum. You voted to go into strike action, and it'll only be you, the members, who will determine in a vote whether or not you're satisfied with the end result and you want to come out of it. So solidarity, I'll see you all on the picket lines. Good luck and keep going.
Thank you, Eddie. And just to let everyone know, we've got well over 2,100 members currently watching the live stream. There'll be more on different platforms, and you'll see at the bottom of your screen the ticker that's running along the bottom there. Cut profits, not jobs and services, write to your MP. There's a link there, which is also available on the RMT website. Please follow that link. Keep ticket offices open. There's a campaigning day of action next Tuesday, the 23rd of August, outside railway stations. You can find out more information about that from your RMT branch or regional office. And finally, Save London's Transport Rally. That's going to be a live in-person meeting rally taking place on Wednesday, the 31st of August at Conway Hall in Holborn in central London from 7 p.m. And it gives me great pleasure now to ask our Assistant General Secretary, John Leach, to give us an update on negotiations with London Underground and Arriva Rail London. John.
Thank you very much, President. Good evening, everybody. It's my privilege and great opportunity now to be able to report back to you live on the eve of strike action, which will commence on Friday for our members on London Underground and London Overground, the most latest position as to where we are. But I too, along with Mick and Eddie, want to just congratulate and thank our members, specifically in London Underground, because they've been now on strike all the way through this year at various times in their absolute determination to stand up for themselves. Fantastic men and women they are that keep the capital city moving in the defence of their jobs, their pensions, their terms and conditions of employment. It was the same solidarity that kept London moving during the pandemic, and it's the same solidarity that they will use to see this through to the end. So thanks for that. A quick bit of background as to where we've got to and why we're here tonight. Obviously, TfL finances, and most of you will know this, are in complete disarray as a consequence of the pandemic. And the Mayor of London has been in continuous negotiations and bailout short-term deals with the government over TfL finance now for a number of years. In actual fact, as we sit here this evening reporting to you, TfL currently is living on its reserves and cash that it has in the bank. Its income does not meet its outgoings. They've told you that themselves, and they are sitting on the edge of a financial cliff. The one thing that we can definitely say about that is that your jobs, your terms and conditions of employment and your pensions and your right for a decent pay rise if you work for Arriva Rail London ain't going over that cliff with them. And that's where the RMT comes into play. So we've continuously levied the management with demands, and I'm going to talk about London Underground first before I talk about Arriva Rail London. And these centred around the fact that we were being told for a considerable period of time that the management had three areas of specific savings that they wanted to make. One was around pensions, one was around jobs, and one was what we would describe as your terms and conditions, your agreements, your rights at work. They've come to us with these proposals and these developments over the time, and we've gone back to them with demands around these three key principles. And as I sit here tonight reporting back to you, regrettably, I'm unable to report that they've been able to agree to any of them. On the issue of pensions, we have been able to push them back through the strike action we've taken to the point where they are now in further discussions with the government around finance, and the Barber report that was produced come up with a number of options. It is actually my belief that if we weren't in such a strong position that we've been in through the strike action we've taken, these pension proposals would have been far more developed, and of course they would have all been worse. But they're very much still in their sights. And London Underground and TfL and the Mayor himself will not assure us there will be no detriment to your pensions. We need them to give you that guarantee. And the reason why we need to seek that guarantee is that in their own independent review, which they published themselves and they've never rescinded, they themselves talk about a modernisation of the pensions model being essential, and that it could save them £100 million a year. So that's why we're not letting go of that demand, and that's why it's very much still an issue on the table where we have to pursue it by means of industrial action. Similarly, with jobs in London Underground, they are imposing 600 job cuts in the front line. This has a detrimental effect on the running of the railway on a daily basis, and it's the first in a series of other cuts. The reason I can tell you that directly is because when I've been at ACAS talks with other negotiators, I have heard it directly to me from directors of the company that all areas in London Underground are being looked at. No stone is being left unturned. So if you work in maintenance, engineering, fleet, stations, trains, revenue control, management and admin, whichever grade you're in, your jobs are under threat. And that's why we've demanded no job cuts. That's not been met either. And as I said earlier, terms and conditions of employment, your rights at work, your agreements, and these are essential, need to be guaranteed. They've been ripped up and attacked on a specific area with regards to our revenue members and station staff and the special requirements team. They are people's rights at work and they are under threat. And we have to have that guarantee. We're not going to go through another P&O in London Underground where people are issued new contracts, new agreements without getting this union's approval. And that's why those demands are so important. With regards moving on to Arriva Rail London, it's a different story. Their management's agenda has been pay. In actual fact, not pay. The below inflation offer that's currently been tabled to the union has been rejected by the membership. We balloted for strike action, and the members will be out with their London Underground colleagues on strike on that crucial issue this Friday the 19th as well. It's just not acceptable to have a two-tier workforce in TfL where you have London Underground workers quite rightly receiving an inflation-proof pay rise this year, but their colleagues in the overground not getting that. And that's why we're on strike there. They are essentially two arms of the same organisation. Arriva Rail London, of course, is a privatised part of railway operations in TfL. It shouldn't be. But until we get pay justice for them, as I've just said, they are on strike together this Friday. And this is a historic moment in that context for London Overground and London Underground members of our union, the many thousands of you. As I've said already, you're showing the same determination that you've shown all the way through the pandemic and right now as we sit here this evening. And there have been no meetings. No meetings have been called either by the Mayor of London, by London Underground, by Arriva Rail London. The General Secretary's phone hasn't rang, the emails haven't dropped into our inbox inviting us to talks, nothing. That's because they are in negotiations themselves with the government over a deal. And as I've said, and I am repeating myself because I want people to hear us loud and clear, the one thing that's not going to be negotiated away in this are Arriva Rail London members' wages, pensions, jobs, and people's terms and conditions of employment. You deserve a lot better. You do a fantastic job for the people of London, keeping the capital city moving. And frankly, to be in this situation now is utterly appalling. But your union, our union, is doing the right thing and standing up and being counted. Now, I'll put a bit of thought into what I'm going to say tonight on this live stream. And I'm going to say this because sometimes you've got to say what you think. I've been involved in this union for 37 years in London Underground and London Transport before that. I have never seen nothing like this, where people who were applauded and lauded for being heroes one day are now scratching around, having to justify why they should be entitled to a reasonable pension, reasonable wages and terms and conditions of employment. It's just utterly unacceptable. And that's why we're fighting back. The attack we're under, we've never seen nothing like it. But I'll finish on like this. The determination by you, the people that are in the centre of all of this, the RMT men and women in Arriva Rail London, on the Overground and in London Underground are showing what you're made of. And that's why we absolutely applaud everything you're doing. It's why we'll be on the picket lines this Friday, and we're going to see this through until we win it. You are absolutely rising to the occasion. You're a credit to what you do day in, day out, keeping London moving, and also as members of this union. And I thank you for that. Thanks.
Thank you very much, John. And just to remind everyone, the Save London's Transport Rally will take place on the 31st of August. That's Wednesday, the 31st. It's being held at Conway Hall, which is in central London, in Holborn, just around the corner from Holborn Tube Station. It'll be addressed by the General Secretaries of the RMT and ASLEF, as well as speakers from Unite. We will have MPs there, including John McDonnell, MP, Marcia de Cordova, MP. There will be representatives also of disabled rights organisations. And there will be further information you can find on that on the RMT website and on social media. So now it gives me great pleasure to ask some of our reps to come and join us. And I think we can do this. Am I going to see, is it Nicole Smith? Hello, Nicole. How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Would you like to put your question to the panel, and we'll try and get an answer for you?
Yeah, is there any financial support for members who are taking industrial action?
Okay, and I should have just said, my apologies, I didn't introduce you very well there, Nicole. So Nicole is an apprentice Network Rail maintenance engineer. She's a member of Glasgow and District Engineering Branch of the RMT. And as you may have guessed, she's from Scotland. So I'm going to ask the General Secretary to respond to Nicole.
Hi, Nicole. Yeah, we've just recently taken a decision on the National Executive to allocate considerable sum of money, £500,000 from the central resources. And that's not the end amount. It's not the total amount. It depends how the situation goes over the next period. And with that, there are considerable sums of money in the regional councils and in many of the branches that they can add to that. We're also receiving donations, considerable donations from other trade unions and individuals. So there will be money there. The system that we've put forward and your own branch and all the other branches around the countries and the regions have been briefed about this in writing, that where members are suffering a detriment or a financial hardship, and of course they've taken the action, taken the strike action through the process, they can go to their branch and make the case that they be given a contribution, a financial assistance award from the branch. Now, we've got so many people on strike, we couldn't, 53,000 people we're going to have on strike this weekend. We couldn't possibly handle that at head office. So we've given the branches the authority to create their own branch dispute fund, which is a new initiative in the union. They can raise money themselves, that they can, on the picket lines or through collections, or I know there's an event down on the South Coast tonight, and there have been other events where people have raised money. And you will, of course, get local donations from other unions. So there will be financial assistance. We're devolving the accountability of that and the decision making to the branches, which we think is a good thing, because then the decision making will be as local and as close to the members as possible. And we will allocate more funds to that as the issue goes on. So yes, the answer is there will be financial support. It's a considerable amount of the union's financial resources, and we'll see how that goes. I understand it won't be perfect in the first rollout. We'll see how it goes. We'll get reviews from branch officers and regional organisers as to how that's gone, and we'll keep it under review and do the best we can for our people.
Is that a full enough answer for you, Nicole?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Well, thanks very much for your question indeed. And I think that's very pertinent. There have been people asking that question all over the country. And I'm now going to invite Neil Sharples. Neil is a member of RMT Wigan branch, and he's a depot driver for Northern Trains. And Neil, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, evening, folks. It's just a question around, has the union's leadership considered imposing an overtime and rest day ban to ratchet up the pressure on the industry?
Thanks very much for that, Neil. General Secretary.
Well, we've been involved in a lot of disputes, Neil, and I know you have as well over the years. And this is a perennial question. What's the best way for the unions to pursue the mandate that we've got? Because we always ask the question about taking strike action and also usually about overtime and rest day working ban. So we have got the mandate and the authority to use an overtime ban, but it's always the question, is that the most effective way? And I'll run through a few scenarios that I'm sure you've heard even in your branch and at your workplace, and many members will recognise this. Some members think we should hit them hard through strike action, and that is the best way to do it. You know what you're going to lose in terms of a day's pay for the particular action that you're called out for if you're rostered on that day, and it's short and sweet. It disrupts the railway, and I'm glad to say we are doing that. They're closing down vast sections of the railway on strike days because we've taken an all grades and all companies approach. They use managers, of course, and it hasn't helped this week that TSSA have settled with the management grades on a very poor offer of 4%. And they will use them to run a kind of railway set service as they're doing one train an hour and what have you. And even that isn't keeping up. And then there's the counter argument to that if you apply a slow tourniquet, if you like, to the railway by an overtime ban, and we've seen in the last week or two what effect that has had, where some people are declining overtime of their own volition, I must say, in a couple of companies, that can be effective as well. The problem is some of our people, and I'm going to be frank, when they've taken strike action, they like the ability to recover some of that money through maybe doing a rest day or an overtime shift or whatever. There's nothing wrong with that. We've never taken a view that that's wrong as a union. We have put strikes on where we have overtime only bans. We've taken strikes where we combine it. We put the strike on, we put the overtime ban on, and what have you. At this time, Neil, we haven't taken the decision because I don't think there is a consensus on the NEC, and that's not a bad thing. People have their views, legitimate views, but I don't think there's a consensus out there amongst the members about which way to go. What we wouldn't do, or in my view, because I get the right to have a view as well, we wouldn't replace the strike action with an overtime ban, because that, I believe, would make us look like we're stepping back away from the effective action that we've taken. So it's not ruled out. People have got the ability and the right to go to their branches and feed back to us what they want to do through our structures, and most people on this call will know how that's done. So the answer is it's available to us, and we may use it at some stage during this dispute. I would see it personally as an escalation alongside strike action rather than a substitute, but that's only my personal view rather than the NEC's formal position. So it's under consideration, and it may happen at some time during the dispute.
Is that okay there, Neil? Did you get your answer, or was there something else you wanted to ask?
No, that's spot on, Alex. Thanks very much.
All right. See you soon. I'd like to invite Sam Ashley now, who is a member of our LU engineering branch and is a signal tech officer for London Underground, to ask his question. Sam, over to you.
Evening, Eddie, Alex, Mick and John. I'd like to ask a question on behalf of the London Underground membership, and that is, what's the latest on the threat to pensions? Thank you. Okay,
I think over to you on this, John.
Yeah, thanks, President. I mean, the threat is real and it's live and it's here tonight with us. As we're in this meeting reporting back to you, Department of Transport officials are in another meeting with members of the TfL Finance Department, essentially trying to trade off your pension. We know that because we've been told clearly that they need to make savings, and I've already referenced the independent review and the fact they want to save £100 million a year, and all of the options that are in the Barber report involve making lots of savings, and it's quite clear that these pension attacks are absolutely staring us in the face. And that's why we've got to take such a hard approach with regards to delivering this strike action this Friday and going forward. The reality is there's absolutely nothing wrong with that TFL pension. It's in very, very good shape. It's financially sound. There is absolutely no need to restructure it or reform it. And I know that because I'm a trustee of the pension fund, and so are the others who are on it. And we've made that determination, independently of this, that the pension is in good shape. But what I can tell you is the employer and the government are in negotiations right now, looking at how they can save lots of money, and they have put the pension on the table. It's totally unacceptable. It's a very real issue, and we have to take a very strong position on it, Sam.
I think that's a fairly full answer there, Sam. Was there anything else you wanted to pick up on?
No, that's it. Thank you.
All right. Thanks very much for your question. And I'd like to now invite Sanna Jensen, who is a member of the RMT Dartford and District Branch and is a signaller and a rep for Network Rail Operations. And Sanna, would you like to put your question?
Yes, good evening, President, General Secretaries. I'm asking on behalf of the membership from Network Rail, who is receiving a lot of propaganda. The latest today is a mandatory video that we need to watch about the pay talks. So members are asking the question of how it was decided to reject the offer from Network Rail. And Eddie has touched upon this, already said it. Will any final offer be put to the members? But again, the propaganda comes out from the company.
Okay, thanks, Sanna. Eddie, I think over to you on this one.
Thanks, President. And thanks, Sanna, for the question. It's an important question because Network Rail members have had letters delivered to their home addresses, mandatory videos that they must watch, company propaganda about the pay negotiations. You've seen the commentary from some senior people in the organisation, I won't name them, in your chat groups. And they even went so far as to include some information on your payslip, encouraging people to demand a referendum on the pay offer that was made and rejected by the company. Well, as you know, and as many other people know, we have many ways of consulting our membership. Referendums aren't the only way, and not even the most often used way. We consult our members through our structures. So in the first instance, an offer is considered by the negotiating team, in this case, your national reps in Network Rail, and me, your officer, and they will go to the local reps and seek their view in the routes and regions, and the local reps will seek the view of the members and represent the views of the people they represent in branch rooms, regional council rooms, on mass meetings, on Teams and on Zoom, as we've been doing. And that's how we've been consulting our membership so far. And we run mass meetings every week in operations and in Network Rail, and in maintenance, to make sure we're keeping people updated and we're hearing the views from the ground up. So we don't always have to take a referendum on every single offer that a company makes. We sometimes get the clearest indication from our people without having to do that, and that is what's happened in this case. And the final offer was put before your elected executive committee, who are lay railway workers, oil and gas workers, and seafaring members, not officers of the union. And they've considered it, elected to that position on your behalf, and they've rejected it. And that's how we've rejected the most recent offer. If we're able to get an improved offer that comes towards meeting the needs of our members in this cost of living crisis, gives people the job security that they demand, and gives us guarantees around changes in the industry, that means people are protected, that offer will come to you. And once our national executive determines that it's fit for that purpose, we will ask our members what they think in a referendum vote. So the final decision will be made by our members in a referendum vote in this case. But that's not the only way we consult our people, as most activists in the union know. But for the average member, that's how we do it. We speak to our reps through our structures. We consult our members in their depots and in their workplaces. They represent those views to our executive committee through reports and through the officer, in this case me. And the decisions made. So I hope that answers your question, Sanna. Thanks for all the hard work, by the way. Look forward to seeing you on a picket line sometime soon.
Thank you, Sanna. Much appreciated. I'm going to invite Beverly Thomas now, Beverly works for Arriva Rail London. Beverly is a ticket office, booking office staff member, and she's a member of RMT Waltham Cross and District Branch. And I'm going to invite Beverly Thomas to put her question. Over to you, Bev.
Hi, good evening, President. Good evening, General Secretaries. At London Overground, we had a 5% offer, which was recently rejected. Now, obviously, we're going to have talks again. What sort of offer would we be now aiming for? And will it be the same across all companies?
Good question. Yeah, I think this is for you, John.
Yeah. Hi. Good evening, Bev. Important question, no doubt about it. But the question is, how in London Underground TfL world can we have the same people doing the same job, with one group getting an 8.2% pay rise, LU, and those in the Arriva Rail section of the London Overground been offered 5%? It's totally unacceptable situation we're in. The figure that we would always negotiate around is based around a formula, and we've said this many times in interviews in this dispute, and also at branch meetings. We negotiate around a formula which is based essentially around the annual pay negotiations, what inflation was at that time. We call it the anniversary date. And that's why in London Underground, where you work alongside people, they got an RPI deal, which was 8.2, and it came in, and you haven't, because Arriva Rail London thinks it can do something different. What would be an acceptable figure? We're not going to tie ourselves down to that figure right now, here and now. We use a formula, and we're serious about negotiating. And of course, there were other issues in the claim. We always ask for other issues to be resolved around the pay negotiations, shorter working week, other things like that. But of course, your employer, Arriva Rail London, hasn't done that. So what we're doing very much by going on strike on Friday in Arriva Rail London is showing the absolute determination of the members there to fight back, to have an equal pay rise with their colleagues in the rest of TfL LUL, and also show the world out there that they're not going to be pushed about. But it's based around the anniversary date when we negotiate. We use a formula which is round about RPI plus, and they haven't matched that. So that's why we are in this situation. We're always available for further talks on this. They haven't come knocking at our door. Therefore, we've got to stand up and be counted on Friday, and I know you'll be part of that. And thank you for all of your support out there.
Is that okay, Bev, or did you want to?
That's fine, but I'm sure you heard my phone go off. There's questions coming in. Ask them this, ask them that. We ain't got all night, but thank you.
All right. And the sixth and final rep is Kathy Kearney. Hello, Kath. Kathy is a guard, onboard services, onboard supervisor, I should say. Works for Southern GTR, and Kathy's a member of RMT South London Rail Branch, and I'd like to invite her to ask her question.
Hello, thank you very much. And thank you for holding the meeting this evening. My question is, the train companies say they do not have the power to agree a pay rise and that it's down to the government. Is this true?
General Secretary.
Yeah, well, this is one of the key points in this dispute. You've probably seen the exchanges on the telly and on the airwaves about who's holding the reins of the employer's side. So technically, your contract of employment and everybody on this call within the dispute, their contract of employment is with their employer, Network Rail or a train operator or London Underground. And it's the same in all of them. But overseeing them, on London Underground, obviously the mayor oversees the finances ultimately, and overseeing him in this case is the Department for Transport and the Treasury. That's the same scenario on the National Rail. Network Rail is a directly owned company, and Grant Shapps is the shareholder, the only shareholder. And in the train operating companies, it's a bit more complex, but it is the same thing. The private train operating companies, the ones that are run by Bellio, by First, by Avanti and whatever, they are technically independent companies. And there are some companies such as LNER and Northern that are directly operated contracts. Nevertheless, Mr. Grant Shapps sits over all of that. And in the contracts that they hold with the train operators in particular, it states expressly, and it's in the public domain, that the Secretary of State for Transport, Grant Shapps, is responsible for the conduct of industrial relations, and he has a decision-making authority over what can be offered or what can be accepted by the companies. So he has a direct right to intervene. Now, we've been saying that he should either let them negotiate freely on their own budgets or their own imaginations, if you like, the way they want to run their business and construct their arrangements, or he should come, or more likely is to send DFT officials to the table so that we can talk to the people that have the power and the authority. Now, that's not happened. So instead, what you get is Grant Shapps ranting and raving at the weekend in the Daily Mail that they were going to issue redundancy notices to everyone, that they were going to impose guardless trains, not just DOO, but guardless entirely without anyone on board. That's the phrase he used. So even if I'm being candid, even some of the management side think this is a very strange arrangement. And they think that the bluster and piffle that's coming out of Grant Shapps is completely unconstructive, or in fact, it's destructive to get an arrangement. Now, we've got a situation coming up in the next few weeks where the Secretary of State may change because there'll be a reshuffle when there's a new Prime Minister, and we'll have to see what effect that has on the discussions. But technically, it's with your company and with everybody else's company, but the DFT has oversight and the power of intervention on that equation. That's why we put so much emphasis on putting the government under pressure, and we'll be doing that again tomorrow. He's the person that can facilitate a settlement. I don't expect him to turn up personally, but I do expect him to allow an agreement to be formulated by the parties that are in the rooms, whether it's Network Rail and us, Network Rail, the train operating companies and us. And then we've got a further issue that once principles are sorted out with the train operating companies as a group, that will then have to go into each of the train operating companies if there are changes on this modernisation agenda. So it's all true that we can make a deal with the train operators. It's also true that the government has a role in it, and we've got to work that through and keep this pressure up. And in essence, that's why this dispute is so centre stage with the government and the commentators and the media, as well as everybody else. And we've got to handle that. And it's your solidarity and your determination that will get us through in the end.
Okay. Is that answer your question, even if it's not a very satisfactory situation, Kath?
Yes, it has answered. Yeah, you're right. It's not satisfactory what's happening with it all, but no, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for your question, and see you soon on a picket line. And so where we are now is I'm going to ask the General Secretary to just sum up at the end of the meeting, at the end of this briefing, the position that we're in, and then we'll wind up. But over to you, General Secretary, to conclude and sum up.
Thanks, President, and thanks again to everyone for coming on tonight. So I'm very proud of what we've achieved in the last few months across the network. I'm talking about the full railway network, London Underground, Network Rail, and the train operators. We pulled off outstanding ballot results, and we've taken on the first national rail strike on our railways for decades. And in doing so, we've put our cause and our members and our union at the centre of national attention and focus. And in doing so, we also seem to have sparked a resurgence, in some ways it seems, of trade union values and trade union activity, and people sitting up and listening to the debates we're having, and our message that workers have a right to expect decent conditions, a decent pension, health and safety, and decent pay. But I know that's all well and good, and profile is well and good, but we've got to do a job for you, the members. And that's our real job, is on your behalf as members of the RMT. And I have to say, this dispute is not an overtly political campaign. We didn't go into it saying we've got to do this to the government or a particular political party. It is an industrial dispute in pursuit of our members' interests. But we can't get away from the fact that its inspiration and the cause of it are £4 billion of political cuts that have been implemented by Grant Shapps and the Treasury. 2 billion against London Underground, where John's background is and is leading that part of the campaign, and 2 billion on the mainline railway. And you cannot get away from that being the cause of this issue. If they hadn't made those cuts, we wouldn't be in this position. So in that sense, it's a defensive dispute to stop the government and the employers attacking our jobs, conditions and pensions. And in order to win for our members, we need to secure a deal through negotiations across all three sections that we're discussing tonight. And as Eddie said earlier, it's our members that will decide what's acceptable and what's not acceptable ultimately. And only then will the dispute be concluded. And that means referendums for the affected members as the offers came in. So if there's an offer on London Underground, we may have to do a referendum there. If there's offers in the other companies, the referendum will go to those. Our aim, and it's one of the other questions that was being put to us, is to achieve those settlements across the piece. It's like keeping a flotilla of vessels all going in the same direction at the same time. But you will have that say when we get an offer that's feasible to put to you. But in order to negotiate a deal for you, we now need you to stand strong and keep up the fight. We said this would not be a sprint, it's going to be a marathon. So we have to stay dug in to this campaign and dug into this dispute. The union will be sensible, and I think we've proven that already, in our use of industrial action. We will not waste your time, your commitment and your money that it costs you to be involved in the strike action. We will not be wasteful. As I said earlier, we will provide financial assistance, and we know that you are making sacrifices in order to win a better future. So let's stay strong together, take the strike action this weekend, get on the picket lines and show the solidarity and the determination that has been a hallmark of this dispute. We have no choice but to pursue this campaign until we get a suitable deal for our people. We don't even have the basis of that deal yet in any of the sections. Left are taking disputes, taking action on the basis of their pay demands. The TSSA and Unite are joining us on action on National Rail this weekend, and I believe Unite are with us on the London Underground as well. These are all good signs that the dispute is escalating and we're getting more support. But we need you to dig in. We have a great union, which we can all be proud of. And we have a wonderful membership out there. And that membership is the pride of the labour movement at this time. Unity is our strength. We must maintain that unity. We must all pull together. And if we work together in unity, in solidarity, we will pull through this dispute. We will pull through for our members and we will win for our people. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mick. So I'm just going to make a couple of concluding remarks. Firstly, to thank you all for joining this live stream. Secondly, to remind you that tomorrow morning from Treble 01 and in some cases in Network Rail from slightly later, we will be taking strike action right across the National Rail network. And it is very important, therefore, that we uphold the great tradition of the RMT of having picket lines, strong picket lines, well-supported picket lines in every work location to persuade anyone who might want to go to work not to do so. This action that we're engaged in is the biggest action, industrial action in the railways, by railway workers and London Underground workers for 33 years, for a third of a century. It is proof of the efficaciousness of the strength of industrial trade unionism, the model of unionism that the RMT represents, and it is part of a working class fight back, which includes other unions. The General Secretary has mentioned Unite bus workers are taking strike action in London this Friday alongside RMT members on London Underground and working for Arriva Rail London. So there are signs of spreading strike action. The Communication Workers Union have called strike action by their telecoms workers and also their Royal Mail workers, and indeed other trade unions, the PCS representing civil servants, and the teachers' unions are currently in the process of balloting their members. We're in a big fight back and we're at the front of it, and we've got to stay strong. So we brought down one Tory Prime Minister, and the rest of the party, the rest of the cabinet is forming a circular firing squad. So let's just get on with it tomorrow morning and do our best to make sure that we deliver for workers in this country. Thanks very much for watching. See you on a picket line.